Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that?
You remember the glasses, the suspenders, and that voice? Did I do that? But behind the laughs, Family Matters was hiding some truly bizarre secrets. From the mysterious disappearance of a Winslow child to the sudden recasting of Harriet, on-set feuds, and Steve Urkel's wild sci-fi inventions, this wholesome sitcom wasn't what it seemed. It began as a simple family comedy and turned into one of the strangest shows on television. This is Family Matters, 1989, 15 Weird Secrets Hidden for Decades. Let's uncover what really happened behind the scenes. Judy Winslow disappeared without any explanation. It remains one of television's strangest disappearances, a mystery that unfolded right in front of millions of viewers, though few noticed at the time. Judy Winslow, the youngest member of the Winslow family and played by actress Jamie Foxworth, vanished from Family Matters without warning after the 19th episode of Season 4, titled Mama's Wedding. That episode, where she appeared as a flower girl at her grandmother Estelle's wedding, became her final moment on the show. When Family Matters first premiered in 1989, Carl and Harriet Winslow had 3 children, Eddie, Laura, and their youngest, 9-year-old Judy. For 4 seasons, Judy was part of the family's daily life, appearing in storylines about school, sibling rivalry, and growing up in the Winslow household. But when Season 5 began, something had changed. The Winslows carried on as if Judy had never existed. There was no explanation, no goodbye, not even a passing mention. The show simply rewrote its own reality, turning Carl and Harriet into parents of 2. Behind the scenes, the decision came down to budget cuts and a creative shift towards Steve Urkel, whose explosive popularity dominated the series. According to producer William Bickley, Judy's character had the least room to grow as the show's focus shifted to larger, more elaborate storylines. For Jamie Foxworth, the news came as a painful surprise. She reportedly learned about her dismissal not from producers, but from her fellow cast members, making her quiet disappearance one of the most heartbreaking secrets in sitcom history. Steve Urkel was named after a real person. When Family Matters co-creator Michael Warren came up with the character of Steve Urkel, he decided to name the quirky neighbor after someone he actually knew. The choice was meant as a friendly nod to his real-life friend, Steve Urkel, a writer and director who had no idea his name was about to become one of the most famous in American television. What began as a small, harmless tribute quickly turned into a nightmare once the show became a hit in the early 1990s. As the fictional Urkel's popularity exploded, people across the country started looking up Steve Urkel in phone books, hoping to find the lovable nerd from TV. In those pre-internet days, contact information was just a phone directory away. It didn't take long before fans discovered the real Steve Urkel's number and began calling him non-stop. Some pretended to be Laura Winslow asking for Steve, while others endlessly repeated the catchphrase, "Did I do that?" The constant calls disrupted his life, with the phone ringing at all hours from strangers expecting to talk to a TV character. Things got worse when his name started causing problems in everyday situations. Hotels, restaurants, and even service providers often thought he was joking or using a fake name. What had once been his real identity became a punchline the world over. Years later, Michael Warren admitted that if he'd known how iconic the character would become, appearing in more than 200 episodes over 9 seasons, he never would have used his friend's real name. What seemed like a harmless in-joke for a one-time character ended up being one of the show's most unfortunate real-life consequences. Stefan Urkel saved Jaleel White's voice. The creation of Stefan Urkel, Steve Urkel's smooth, confident alter ego, wasn't just a clever plot twist dreamed up by the writers. It was born out of necessity. By the time Family Matters reached its 5th season in 1993, Jaleel White had spent nearly 4 years performing Urkel's signature high-pitched nasal voice. The strain of keeping that tone, along with the constant yelling and exaggerated physical comedy, began to take a serious toll on his vocal cords. Producers worried that if White continued without rest, he could suffer permanent vocal damage. Their solution came in the form of a storyline that would change the show forever, a transformation chamber that turned Steve Urkel into his charming, self-assured opposite, Stefan Urkel. Unlike Steve, Stefan spoke in White's natural voice, giving the actor a much-needed break. Executive producer David Duclon later explained that Stefan was essentially Jaleel White being himself. Audiences instantly embraced the new character. Stefan's debut in the episode Dr. Urkel and Mr. Cool was such a hit that he kept returning, eventually becoming a recurring figure when Steve created a clone of himself who remained permanently transformed. What began as a practical way to protect an actor's health ended up becoming one of Family Matters' most iconic and beloved storylines. The show's original theme song was Louis Armstrong. Most fans instantly recognize Family Matters by its cheerful theme song As Days Go By. But surprisingly, that wasn't how the show began. When the series premiered on September 22, 1989, the opening credits rolled to Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World, a song that had no real connection to the Winslow family or the show's Chicago setting. The choice was unusual for a light-hearted sitcom, especially at a time when most shows featured catchy original themes created just for television. After only 5 episodes, including the pilot The Mama Who Came to Dinner, producers realized that Armstrong's reflective jazz ballad didn't quite fit the show's tone. Its lyrics about trees of green and skies of blue clashed with the fast-paced urban family comedy they wanted to create. They quickly replaced it with As Days Go By, written by Jesse Frederick, Bennett Salve, and Scott Rome, with Frederick providing the vocals. The new theme, with its warm lyrics about the bigger love of the family, captured exactly what Family Matters was meant to be, a celebration of love, laughter, and home. When reruns later aired in syndication, the pilot episode still featured What a Wonderful World, confusing fans who had grown up with the newer song. That original opening lasted only a handful of episodes, making it one of the shortest-lived and most fascinating theme songs in sitcom history. A fraternity made Steve Urkel famous. Steve Urkel's rise from a one-time guest role to the star of Family Matters began with a completely unexpected moment, one that no one in the studio could have predicted. When 12-year-old Jaleel White first appeared as the nerdy neighbor in the Season 1 episode Laura's First Date, the plan was simple. 1 episode, 1 guest spot, and then goodbye. But that plan changed the night a group of college students showed up to watch the live taping. The students, members of a fraternity, instantly fell in love with White's over-the-top performance, the suspenders, the voice, the clumsy charm. They laughed louder than anyone else, and even when Urkel wasn't on screen, they started chanting from the audience, "Urkel! Urkel! Urkel!" No one saw it coming. The cast, crew, and producers were stunned by the reaction. In all their years of working on sitcoms, they had never seen a live audience react so passionately to a minor character. Studio audiences usually clapped politely for guest stars. But this was chaos. That spontaneous chanting convinced the producers that they had something special. The energy in the room made it clear that Steve Urkel wasn't just another quirky neighbor. He was a star in the making. What began as a single guest appearance turned into a 9-season phenomenon. Thanks to a few rowdy college students and one unforgettable performance, Steve Urkel became one of the most recognizable and beloved characters in television history. The show became pure science fiction. What began as a wholesome sitcom about the everyday life of the Winslow family slowly evolved into one of the most unexpectedly sci-fi shows on television. and it was all thanks to Steve Urkel's increasingly outrageous inventions. As Family Matters moved through its 9 seasons, the series drifted further from its realistic roots. Storylines that once focused on school, family dinners, and neighborhood squabbles gave way to plots that felt more like Star Trek than a Friday night family comedy. Steve's boy genius persona became the show's gateway to wild science fiction. His inventions went from quirky gadgets to full-blown miracles of technology, transformation chambers that altered human DNA, cloning machines that created exact duplicates, and teleportation devices capable of transporting people across continents. In one episode, he even built a time-travel wristwatch that sent him and Carl back into the past, with predictably chaotic results. Another memorable storyline featured his IRC-Pad, a teleportation experiment gone wrong that accidentally zapped Carl to Paris, while Steve was trying to transport a piece of cheese. The blunder led to a 3-part vacation arc where the Winslows treated teleportation like an everyday convenience. By the series finale, the absurdity reached its peak. Steve's latest invention caused a satellite to crash into a space shuttle, forcing him to travel into outer space to fix it himself. The moment marked the show's complete transformation, from family comedy to full-blown sci-fi adventure. Through it all, the Winslows reacted to Steve's world-altering inventions with almost casual indifference. Carl would grumble about being shrunk to 2 inches tall or accidentally turned into Steve's clone. Yet no one seemed amazed that their teenage neighbor had essentially rewritten the laws of physics. Carl Winslow is the same character from multiple movies. Actor Reginald VelJohnson became so closely linked to police roles that fans eventually created an elaborate theory connecting all of his on-screen law enforcement characters into one continuous story. A single cop whose career spanned multiple movies and TV shows. Between 1984 and 1998, VelJohnson appeared as a police officer in Ghostbusters, Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Turner and Hooch, and Family Matters. To some creative viewers, it was more than coincidence. It was a hidden timeline. According to the fan theory, VelJohnson's story begins in Ghostbusters, 1984, where he plays a New York corrections officer who witnesses supernatural chaos. Traumatized by the paranormal, the theory claims he leaves New York and relocates to Los Angeles, eventually becoming Sergeant Al Powell in Die Hard, the good-natured desk cop who helps John McClane during the Nakatomi Plaza crisis. Powell's reluctance to fire his gun, a key point in Die Hard, is explained by those early ghostly encounters in New York. After the dangerous events in L.A., the theory suggests he moves again, this time to Chicago, and becomes Carl Winslow, the mild-mannered police officer and family man in Family Matters. Fans point out the similarities across all these roles: his humor, compassion, and knack for finding himself in bizarre situations that go far beyond normal police work. The theory gained more traction when VelJohnson reprised his Die Hard role as Al Powell in the TV series Chuck, which fans interpreted as another chapter in the same long-running story. Some even include his character Detective David Sutton from Turner and Hooch, weaving it into the same fictional career, creating a detailed, decades-long saga of one man's life in uniform. VelJohnson has laughed about the theory over the years, saying he understands why fans make the connection. In truth, he explained, his repeated casting as a police officer has more to do with Hollywood's typecasting habits, and his natural ability to bring warmth, humor, and humanity to those roles. Still, he admits he takes pride in it. Whether it's Al Powell, Carl Winslow, or any of the others, Reginald VelJohnson has spent his career showing audiences what a good-hearted cop looks like, even if, technically, they're all supposed to be different men. 2 different actresses played Harriet Winslow. The final season of Family Matters brought a major behind-the-scenes shakeup that most fans didn't even notice. Jo Marie Payton, who had played the Winslow family matriarch, Harriet, for more than 8 years, abruptly left midway through season 9. For the remaining episodes, the role was quietly recast with actress Judy-Ann Elder, without a single on-screen explanation. The change came after growing tension between Peyton and Jaleel White, the actor behind Steve Urkel. By 1997, when CBS picked up the show for its 9th season, Peyton had already considered walking away. She reportedly felt that Family Matters had long since jumped the shark, straying too far from its roots as a family-centered sitcom and focusing instead on Urkel's increasingly wild science fiction storylines. Although her contract had expired, Peyton agreed to stay temporarily to keep continuity for the fans. But during the filming of one episode, in which White played a gangster version of his character, things took a turn. White allegedly tried to improvise lines that violated television broadcast standards, and Peyton objected. The disagreement escalated into a shouting match that nearly became physical. According to reports, Darius McCrary, who played Eddie Winslow, had to step in and physically separate them before the argument went any further. That incident proved to be the breaking point. Soon after, Peyton decided to leave Family Matters for good. Judy-Ann Elder, a seasoned actress known for her work in A Different World and In the Heat of the Night, was brought in to finish the season. The transition happened so quietly that many viewers didn't realize the change had taken place, especially since the series ended just a few months later. In the end, Harriet Winslow's recasting went down as one of television's most unnoticed swaps, a quiet ending for a character who had once been the heart of the show. A demonic ventriloquist dummy episode existed. One of the most unsettling episodes in Family Matters history, aired on October 25, 1996, when the usually wholesome sitcom took a shocking turn into full-blown horror. The Halloween special, titled Stevel, replaced family laughs with genuine scares, and left audiences wondering what had happened to their friendly Friday night comedy. The story began harmlessly enough. Steve Urkel proudly showed the Winslows his new ventriloquist dummy, a perfect replica of himself, complete with glasses, suspenders, and an unnerving grin. The family found it more creepy than funny, with Eddie joking that Steve was the world's worst ventriloquist. But later that night, things took a dark turn. During a thunderstorm, lightning struck through Steve's bedroom window and hit the dummy while he slept. The surge brought the puppet to life, but with a cruel and sinister personality. The doll, which Steve had named Stevel, became everything Steve wasn't: confident, malicious, and completely out of control. Once alive, Stevel began tormenting the Winslows one by one. He manipulated Carl into violent behavior, forced Eddie to attack Steve with a blender, and trapped Laura inside a kitchen cupboard. The dummy's glowing eyes, eerie laughter, and independently turning head created moments that felt straight out of a horror movie, not a sitcom. The episode drew clear inspiration from the Twilight Zone classics The Dummy and It's a Good Life, creating an atmosphere of fear unlike anything else on TGIF television. By the end, it was revealed to be only a nightmare, but the scares were so convincing that the twist hardly mattered. The episode became an instant cult favorite and was so popular that the show brought Stevel back for a sequel in Season 9, Stevel 2. This time, he's not alone. Steve Urkel created 8 different characters. While most fans remember Jaleel White as the suspender-wearing Steve Urkel, the actor's work on Family Matters went far beyond that one iconic role. Over the show's 9 seasons, White brought to life 8 different characters, each with unique voices, mannerisms, and personalities, a testament to his incredible range and creativity. The most famous of these alter egos was, of course, Stefan Urquella, Steve's smooth, confident counterpart created through one of his many inventions. Speaking in White's natural voice and trading suspenders for stylish suits, Stefan quickly became a fan favorite. The character's popularity grew so much that Steve eventually cloned himself, turning one version permanently into Stefan. White also took on the challenge of playing Myrtle Urkel, Steve's flirtatious Southern Belle cousin with an unshakable crush on Eddie Winslow. The role required him to perform in drag, adopting a feminine voice and mannerisms that pushed him far beyond his comfort zone. White later admitted that portraying Myrtle was emotionally difficult, and that he even cried after filming certain scenes. The Urkel family didn't end there. White portrayed Cornelius Eugene Urkel, another eccentric cousin who shared Steve's love for science, as well as alternate versions of Steve from different timelines and realities, including elderly and even evil versions born from malfunctioning experiments. One of the most unusual creations came in the form of Stevel, a possessed ventriloquist dummy that came to life in a Halloween episode and terrorized the Winslows. White not only provided the voice for the demonic doll, but also acted opposite himself in the same scenes, pulling off one of the show's most technically demanding performances. Through all these transformations, Jaleel White proved he was much more than a sitcom stereotype. His performances turned Family Matters into one of television's most creative, unpredictable, and unforgettable comedies. A true showcase of talent hidden behind a pair of oversized glasses. The cast resented Steve Urkel's popularity. Steve Urkel's sudden rise from a one-time guest star to the face of Family Matters caused major tension behind the scenes. What started as an ensemble sitcom about the Winslow family quickly transformed into the Steve Urkel Show, leaving many of the original cast members feeling pushed aside. In a 2011 interview with Vanity Fair, Jaleel White admitted that the early years were difficult. "Things were definitely strained in the early going," he said. "There's no sense in hiding that. There was a division between myself and the rest of the cast. It wasn't hard to see why. Reginald VelJohnson, Joe Marie Payton, Darius McCrary, and Kelly Shanignan Williams had all helped build the show's foundation, only to watch the spotlight shift to a 12-year-old newcomer whose character was never even supposed to last beyond one episode. As Urkel's popularity exploded, entire episodes began revolving around his inventions, clumsy antics, and endless pursuit of Laura Winslow. The rest of the family became supporting players in what had originally been their story. For the adult cast, it was a tricky situation, balancing professional pride with patience for a child actor who was simply doing his job remarkably well. Meanwhile, Urkel mania swept the country. The character spawned toys, catchphrases, and endless merchandise, turning Jaleel White into a pop culture phenomenon and leaving the rest of the cast struggling to keep up with his fame. In time, though, the tension began to fade. The cast grew closer, relationships healed, and everyone came to appreciate the success the show had brought them. Despite the early friction, Family Matters endured for 9 seasons and 215 episodes, a lasting legacy built on both conflict and collaboration. Michelle Thomas was fighting cancer during filming. During the final seasons of Family Matters, actress Michelle Thomas was quietly fighting a private battle that few people on set knew about. While continuing to play Myra Monkhouse, Steve Urkel's sweet and devoted girlfriend, Thomas was bravely battling stomach cancer. She was diagnosed in 1997, during what would turn out to be the show's final years. Despite her illness, she chose to keep it private, continuing to work and bring life to the character that had made her a familiar face to millions of viewers. As Myra, Thomas added warmth and sincerity to the series. Her character loved Steve for who he truly was, his intelligence, kindness, and awkward charm, rather than teasing him for his quirks. Many fans even believed Myra, not Laura Winslow, was Steve's real soulmate. As her health declined, the demands of television production became increasingly difficult. The long hours, rehearsals, and physical comedy took their toll, but Thomas stayed professional and committed until she could no longer continue. When she finally left the show, her departure wasn't addressed. Myra simply disappeared from the storyline as the final episodes shifted focus to Steve and Laura's relationship. Tragically, Michelle Thomas passed away on December 22, 1998, just months after Family Matters aired its final episode in July. She was only 30 years old, her life and career cut short far too soon. Before joining Family Matters, Thomas had already made her mark on The Cosby Show and other TV appearances, but her portrayal of Myra Monkhouse remains her most enduring legacy. Jaleel White, her longtime co-star and friend, later honored her memory with a tribute in his home, describing her as one of the brightest lights of his life and career. Bitterness on September. It wasn't exactly a surprise that Jaleel White's sudden rise to fame as Steve Urkel caused tension behind the scenes. The young actor's character had gone from a one-time guest appearance to the undisputed star of Family Matters, and not everyone on set was thrilled about the shift. In an interview with Vanity Fair, White openly acknowledged the strain his success created among the cast. "Things were definitely strained in the early going," he admitted. "There's no sense in hiding that. There was a division between myself and the rest of the cast, but over 9 years and 215 episodes, obviously, relationships get better. I still talk to certain cast members to this day." His words reflected what many had sensed from the outside, that the overwhelming popularity of Urkel, while making the show a cultural phenomenon, also tested the bonds of the people who brought it to life. Jo Marie Payton left in Season 9. Jo Marie Payton's journey to Family Matters began with her breakout role as the sharp-tongued elevator operator on Perfect Strangers. Her character was such a hit that producers created a spin-off centered around her, and that's how Harriet Winslow was born. At first, Payton was thrilled. Playing the strong, outspoken matriarch of the Winslow family was a dream role. But as the years went by, the show began to change. What had started as a heartfelt family sitcom gradually shifted its focus to the growing popularity of Steve Urkel. According to director John Tracy, Payton grew frustrated with the new direction. She wanted the show to return to its roots, exploring Harriet and Carl's marriage and their relationships with their children, the foundation Family Matters had been built on. The studio, however, had other plans. Urkel was a ratings magnet, and the network wasn't about to give that up. When Payton's contract gave her the chance to leave during Season 9, she took it without hesitation. After more than 8 years as Harriet Winslow, she walked away from the show and never looked back. Her departure came quietly, and the role was quickly recast with actress Judy Ann Elder, who stepped in to finish out the final episodes. For longtime fans, it marked the end of an era, the moment the real heart of the Winslow family said goodbye. Carl Winslow doesn't like children. Reginald VelJohnson may have spent a decade playing America's favorite TV dad on Family Matters, but off-screen, he was nothing like Carl Winslow. Unlike his warm, family-oriented character, VelJohnson never married and doesn't have children. And by his own admission, he isn't exactly a fan of being around them for long. "When my friends bring their kids over, I have fun playing with them for a while," he once told People magazine. "But then they start getting into my stuff and I say, they're cute. You can go home now." After years of being typecast as the lovable, funny father figure, VelJohnson was ready for a change. When the series finally wrapped, he admitted he was eager to move away from the nice guy roles that had defined his career and explore darker, more complex characters. A far cry from the cheerful cop millions of fans had come to adore. Even decades later, Family Matters continues to surprise fans with stories that go far beyond what we saw on TV. From behind-the-scenes conflicts to shocking character changes and unforgettable twists, it remains one of the most fascinating sitcoms of its time. Which of these secrets shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories and hidden truths from classic shows like Family Matters.